Now that we've updated the code in our isUserAuthenticated method in our TM Twitter class, it's time to go over to the main controller and set it up to receive a string instead of a Boolean value. We'll go up to our File History menu and choose Main Controller. Coming back to this method, after making all those changes to the isUserAuthenticated method, gives me a few more ideas. First, we should not try to authenticate credentials if either or both of the text fields are empty. Missing either the username or password will guarantee authentication fails. Also, if the user was already authenticated, doing so might set their authentication to false. And now that I mention it, we still do not have a way to keep track of whether a user has been authenticated. I also think that the Twitter class should handle checking for credentials. It seems more appropriate that the class checking for authentication should know if it has credentials to check. And once we finish these items, we will need to add code to save this information so that it is available each time the application launches. First on the list is missing text. We will check both fields first and exit the method if either of them is empty. So the way we'll do that, we're going to remove setting our variables here, and we'll create NSStrings. We'll just call this first one name. We'll do the same thing for the password. We'll call it pass. And now we're going to need an if statement. So we're going to say if name is equal to string, and we'll give it an empty string. We'll use the logical OR operator, or pass is equal to string, and the same thing, an empty string. If either one of those are true, we're just going to return. And that means we won't do anything. Next, we'll add an instance variable to the Twitter class. This will give us a way to keep track of the user's authentication status. So we'll save here, and we're going to go to our Twitter H file. And here we'll add a property to create our variable. And the standard way to create a getter method for a Boolean value is to prefix it with the word is. We are going to add a variable named authorized. When we want to retrieve the value, we will use tmtwit.isAuthorize. When we want to set the value, we will use tmtwit.authorized. The app property gives us a simple way to specify the name of a getter method by using getter equals varName as one of the attributes. First, we will declare the variable, and here it's going to be a Boolean. It's going to be named authorized. And then we'll create our property. And it'll be non-atomic. We're going to use a sign. Here's where we're going to set the getter method name. So we'll say getter equals is authorized. And then we'll say bool authorized. And we save this. We'll go over to our implementation file, and we'll go to the top, and we're going to add this to our synthesize. While we're here, we'll go set up the isUserAuthenticated method to check itself for credentials and to see if authorization has already been done. And that's down at the bottom of the file. I'm going to remove this line that we had before. We don't need that anymore. And the first thing we'll want to check is if we have credentials. So we'll say if self has credentials. If that equals no, we'll go ahead and return text here, and we'll say no credentials. If we have credentials, we want to check and see if we've already been authorized. So we'll add that in, and this time we're checking an instance variable, so we'll say self.isAuthorize, and we'll put equals yes, and if we are authorized, we'll just return the username. And we get that with self.username. Now, one thing I haven't pointed out so far, with if statements and with if-else statements, you don't have to put the braces. The braces are optional. The rule with braces, if you're going to have more than one line, only the first line would get executed. So what I mean by that is if we had more than one line inside of here, in between the braces, all of the lines will get executed as we go down until the brace ends. If we remove the braces, like so, then if this statement is true, the very next line will be executed, but the line after that would not be part of the if statement. And one other thing you can do to save space is we can put all this on one line. Now the statement will just read if self is authorized equals yes, then it'll return self.username. And we can do the same thing with has credentials. When if statements are simple, sometimes a one-liner is the way to go. I'm going to remove all this space here. Just tidy it up a little bit. And now I think we've finally got everything set up on this side. Let's go back to the main controller and take advantage of this new functionality.